you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K,
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lapierre coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lapierre, back to LaFleur.
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Leur 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup! Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this Tuesday, January 28th. The Montreal Canadiens coming off of 2 straight losses Thursday night in Detroit and Saturday night in Montreal versus the New Jersey Devils in overtime. The Canadiens looking to get back to their winning ways, taking on the Winnipeg Jets tonight. It was Samuel Montembeault versus Connor Hellebuck, and the Montreal Canadiens struck first, but unfortunately for them, the Winnipeg Jets scored 4 unanswered goals after that. The Canadiens lose by a score of 4-1. The Sick Podcast tonight, my guest will be Pierre McGuire, the McGuire Report, and former Montreal Canadiens player Maxim Lapierre. The Sick Podcast is brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. Also brought to you in part by Playground. The World Cup of Cards returns to Playground from January 22nd to February 2nd with over $900,000 in guarantees spread out over 16 championship ring events. Highlights include a $400,000 guaranteed multi-day main event and the multi-day PG 300 Mega Stack event with $150,000 guaranteed. The World Cup cards at Playground as of January 22nd. Visit playground.ca for details. And brought to you by Bittt Tibi. They launched their new Ultra Lager, a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for the chilly winter days with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, and 4% ABV per can. Available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. Ultra light, ultra refreshing. Before we get to our guests, just so we can tee it up, this is the way we teed up the game. It was 2 very hot teams with very comparable records since December the 1st. Let's see if we can bring up the graphic. Agnello and Sammy and Master Control, thank you very much for that. There you have it. They showed this on TSN tonight. That was showing the game as well as RDS. Since December 1st, Winnipeg, a record of 16-8-3. The Canadiens, 16-8-2. This, of course, before the game tonight. 35 points for the Jets, 34 for the Canadiens, 648 win percentage for the Jets, 654 for the Canadiens. Goals per game, 322 for the Jets, 3.19 for the Canadiens. It doesn't get any closer than that, folks. And, by the way, the Montreal Canadiens played the first period. It looked like the Canadiens were going to keep this one close. But the more the game went on, the Winnipeg Jets just leaned on the Montreal Canadiens and were extremely opportunistic. And every time the Canadiens made a mistake, the Winnipeg Jets made the Canadiens pay cash. Let's bring in former Montreal Canadien Maxim Lapierre. How are you, my friend?
Hello, Tony.
Nice to see you, and nice to see the Rocker Richard portrait behind you once again. A favorite of all of our fans watching on YouTube Live and on Facebook Live. And now
hello,
it's time
fans,
for the McGuire Report. The McGuire Report. Presented by Vago Italian.
Restaurant Vago has been open for 23 years. Not many restaurants have been open that long. They call that longevity. They also call that quality, and they call that service, and they call that pricing. It's where everything comes together, and that's why they've been open that long. Private dining rooms for any occasion, whether it's a corporate meeting, an engagement, or a birthday party. Go see Tommaso in the front or Angelo in the kitchen. They'll both be there. And as a matter of fact, and Angelo is cooking up a storm, and they are open Monday to Saturday evenings and lunch Tuesday to Friday. They have plenty of free parking after 6 p.m., fresh quality ingredients, old world Italian classics, and new Italian as well. Once again, it's Restaurant Vago on Green Avenue, corner of the Maisonneuve. Gentlemen, good evening, and thanks for doing this again. Pierre, I hope you're well. Pierre, the Winnipeg Jets showed everyone tonight that they're the real deal.
They're the real deal, and they didn't have Adam Lowry, and that's a player that I know Max knows very well. He's a tough physical guy. He'll grind on a lot of players, including most of the Montreal Canadiens forwards. There was a lot to like from Montreal side of things. I thought Connor Hellebuck was really good, especially early in the game. He makes two huge breakaway saves, one in the first period, one in the third period against Josh Anderson. Those were two major moments in the game. And I was curious what Max thought of this, Tony. At the end of the second period, I didn't like the fact that Martin St. Louis had Pezzetta, Gallagher, and Dvorak on the ice in the last 30 seconds of that period against the top line of the Winnipeg Jets, and the puck ends up at the back of the net. I thought it was a massive swing moment in the game.
Max, go ahead, Max.
No, yeah, I agree. I just think tonight, if we came back in November, like guys are spending a lot of energy in the defensive zone coverage. They're chasing the puck, and every time the puck was below the goal line or behind the net, it's a scoring chance, and you're supposed to be able to cover. But when you play against a system which is close to man-on-man, you just have to go hide behind the net, and then it's tough because you need to turn your head and you lose track of what's behind you. This is what happened on two of the goals.
Mm-hmm. Max, I'm going to say this. Pierre McGuire has obviously coached in the National Hockey League as a head coach and as an assistant coach, and he has a lot of respect for the profession. And what you just heard Pierre do was very diplomatically, question a coaching decision here. And I have to tell you, because I'm not as diplomatic as Pierre is absolutely right. Marty St. Louis made a huge coaching mistake on that play. The Canadiens have played 50 games. Michael Pezzetta was playing in game 13. He was deemed not good enough to be part of the starting lineup, to be part of the lineup for 37 games. Every time he does play, how much ice time does he get? He never gets more than 6 minutes in a hockey game. And in a very tight hockey game and in a very important hockey game for the Montreal Canadiens, he's on with 30 seconds left against the Winnipeg Jets first line. Guys, it's a huge coaching mistake. Huge.
Well, I'll be honest, I'm kind of in between. Like, I understand the point, but at the same time, I played that role being on the fourth line, and they trusted my line, like it's those are guys that are going to pay the price. And if you look at the positive side of putting those guys on, you think they're not going to take any risk. They're going to put the puck deep and not make any mistake. They got cut on that one. Do I prefer having other guys on the ice? 100%. But I don't see it as a high risk with those players on the ice, to be honest.
I thought it was a high risk because Lane Hudson was on the ice with Caden Guhle. So I think it's a super high risk when you consider the size of Scheifele, when you consider the size of Velarde, and you consider the shooting ability of Kyle Connor. I thought it was a massive risk. I didn't like it. I know it's a period of a long change. Totally get it. I'd much prefer to have Anderson, Armia, and Evans on the ice in that 100%. Situation. Maybe even Gallagher instead of but Gallagher's on that play. But I'm just saying Gallagher with two other guys. To Max's point about the courage and the guys that can do stuff. That's all.
It was a big time turning point in the hockey game, because you're down by a score of 2-1, and now you end up going back to the locker room down by a score of 3-1. Connor scores at 19:58 with 2 seconds left in period number 2. The guys go back to the locker room. They're absolutely devastated. And there was a big turning point, guys, even before that also involved Michael Pezzetta. He's within 2 feet of the net with an empty cage. He has a chance to tie that game with the puck on his stick, and it just rolls off of his stick, and he's unable to jam it home. And then a couple of minutes later, Winnipeg scores the goal to put them up 3-1. And, I know Josh Anderson had that breakaway in the third period. And once again, if he scores that, by the way, on an amazing pass by Lane Hudson. Yeah. On an amazing pass by Lane Hudson, a stretch pass. And Josh goes with his favorite move. He's a right-handed shot. He goes forehand, goes to backhand, but he's unable to put it home. And that's your hockey game, guys. The Canadiens lose by a score of 4-1. Let's take a look at the lines in tonight's games. for the Canadiens and for the Winnipeg Jets, if we can. All right, for the Canadiens, Suzuki with Slavkovsky and Caulfield. That's your first line. Doc centering Newhook and Liney. Evans with Armia and Anderson. Dvorak with Gallagher and Pizzetta. On defense, Matheson, Carrier, Guhle, Hudson, Jacky, Savard, Montembeault gets the starting goal. Let's keep it right here for a second. Guys, as you know, it was a difficult night for Mike Matheson on Saturday night. And I'm not talking about the game-winning goal because I didn't think that was his fault. I thought it was on Patrick Liney. But it was a difficult night for Mike Matheson, who was on the ice for several goals against that night and looked like he was fighting the puck. Tonight, the Canadiens change up their defense pairings. Gentlemen, when you saw going into the game that Guhle was going to be playing with Hudson, who was going to be playing on his right side, and Matheson, who was going to be playing with Carrier, what did you think? Because what I thought was, as great as Lane Hudson is, he's played his best hockey on the left side. Why are you switching him over to play him on the right side versus one of the best teams in the National Hockey League? But Pierre, what did you think of the coaching staff saying, you know what, Mike Matheson, it didn't work with you and Lane Hudson last game. We got to get you a new defense partner tonight.
I think there was another reason why they did that. They wanted Matheson on the left, Carrier on the right, because they wanted a matchup against Connor, Scheifele, and Velarde. And most of the night, those guys did the heavy lifting against them. And a lot of things started to change, obviously, when Guhle got hurt. And that, you talked about the things that came out of the game. One of the things that's coming out of the game for me, if that's a serious injury to his left side, whether it's his ankle, his shin, or his knee, that's going to have some pretty significant problems for the Montreal Canadiens. I had no problem with what they did on the back end. None at all. Max knows. I mean, I've prepared game plans. Max played in games like that. Matchups matter when you have a star line like that. And you got to be committed to your game plan. And I had no issues with what the coaching staff did with that. I don't know how Max feels, but
So many things. First of all, I spent the whole day on Twitter or on X trying to defend Madison. So my thumbs are freaking tired right now. I'll tell you something. It's crazy. We just lost track of we're a rebuilding team right now.
Yeah.
We had a good month, but we still have we're still missing players, guys, and I feel bad for Madison, and that's why I've been defending him all day. He's not in the right chair. This guy is not supposed to be playing number one defenseman minutes. That's not what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to be a good 3, 4, even 5. He's a good skater. Right now, we give him every responsibilities possible. He's been doing well with Hudson. Tony's right. They were doing a great job. They had a few issues. That happens. But I felt like we need to make it honest, in the way we analyze his game. Obviously he's having a tough time, but I've heard all day about he's the worst defenseman for giveaways and all that crap on social media.
Yeah,
I pull up all the stats. Tony, he's 46 in the NHL in all the defensemen for turnovers, giveaways. He's behind guys like Makar, Edmund, all these guys. Yossi, Zadorov, Theodore, Carlson, Bouchard, Uyghur. At one point, let's not just destroy someone because we feel like destroying someone. He's having a tough time. That's it. He's been great for us. He had 65 points last year. He's not even playing in the right chair. Enough. At one point,
okay. Totally agree with you. And by the way, I think, if he's a 3, he's in a much better chair. And I've defended him too. But the fact of the matter is he did not play a good game on Saturday night. The fact of the matter is he did not play a good game tonight. And you know what? That's fine because you're going to have good games and bad games. However, Pierre, you that prepared a lot of game plans, I have a question for you. And I understand what you're saying. Really, I do. But if you want to match up against Scheifele, against Connor, and against Velarde, do you break up what has been your shutdown pairing on defense since the minute that they basically acquired Carrier, and it's worked out really well, to put Mike Matheson, who's coming off of one of his worst games of the season, and ask Matheson to now be in that shutdown chair with Carrier?
Well, I think they want him to get comfortable on the left side. I really do. I think that was part of it. And then obviously the matchup part of it. I always liked the Guhle Carrier thing. I've been saying it since they got him. Yeah. But the truth is that sometimes coaches just play hunches, and they played a hunch tonight. And I don't think that's why they lost. Michael playing on the left. I think they lost because – and here's the one. I don't have the stats. You have them in front of me. You're good on the stats. I'd like to know how many times the Canadiens missed the net in high danger scoring areas, because I'll tell you one thing right now. I think Connor Hellebuck intimidated their shooters. They missed a ton of chances tonight.
I think that's a good point, but I've gone to Mike Matheson's defense before, and I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to say that they lost because of Mike Matheson, but I'm going to tell you that the duo of Matheson and Carrier really struggled tonight, and they're on the ice for the first 2 goals against, and you know what? They're getting beat to look. They went up against really good players. I get it.
Oh yeah, it's just the point of I don't like the plus and minus stat. Like first of all, there's been mistakes made by Madison and Carrier on the plays. I agree 100%, but we still need to look at what happens before, like 1 minute and a half shifts, turnovers. Like why do they end up being exposed on the ice at one point? I know it's their job to do their job, but like behind the net, obviously Madison loses his guy, but there's a guy alone in the slot too. Like why is he taking a shot from there when there's 2 guys in the slot like on him? He's not supposed to be able to take a great shot, like at one point it's a team game. Like tonight they've been chasing.
Tony, I just want to build off of what Maxim's saying, because I think it really comes down to he's got a player's mentality, and I kind of see where he's going. I just want people to understand, like, matchups aren't easy. Everybody says, oh, it's harder to score goals. To play against superstar players like Kyle Connor and to play against a superstar center like Max Scheifele, I'm just telling you, Mark Scheifele, I'm just going to tell you right now, it's hard. It's hard to do. Maxime Lapierre had to do it. Whether it was Brian Trottier, or whether it was Randy Gillen or Mark Janssens, Mark Lamb, all these different players I had the privilege of coaching. That's a hard deal to do, man. I'm telling you. And those guys don't get nearly enough credit. They don't. And Kyle Connor right now, I don't care what anybody says, is probably one of the top 3 pure scorers in the league.
Most underrated player in the league.
100%. So I know people are going to go after Mike Matheson. They're going to go after Carrier. I don't think it's their fault. I'm with Max. I'm totally with Max in this.
And you know what? That's fine, because after Slafkovsky puts the Canadiens up by a score of 1-0, and it's Caulfield, by the way, who takes a shot. The rebound comes back to him. He puts it to Suzuki behind the net, who finds Slafkovsky at the top of the left faceoff circle, whose quick snapshot beats Hellebuck far side. The goal to tie it at 1, about 4.5 minutes later, DeMello shoots the puck. It goes off of Velarde, who's being watched by Carrier, and Kyle Connor's offensive instincts gets to the puck right before Matheson, and he scores. So, once again, it's not entirely on Matheson and Carrier, but I will tell you where that play started. That play started with Gabriel Velarde stripping Cole Caulfield of the puck in the neutral zone, turning it over. So now I got to question you, Pierre, that you were a master of matchups, okay? If you're going up against 6'1" Kyle Connor, 6'3" Mark Scheifele, and 6'3" Gabriel Velarde, would you put up against them the shortest, smallest player on the ice at the forward position in Cole Caulfield?
No, I would have
played bigger than them.
I would have played Anderson, Armia, and Evans against that line. I mean, I would have had a 5-man commit. Just telling you, it wasn't a perfect night, but I had a 5-man plan to shut down 3 guys. That's what I would have done, and everybody else got to sink or swim on their own. But those 5 guys, that's your job, and you get last change on home ice. Max knows what I'm talking about. It's a lot easier to facilitate that on home ice than it is to do it on the road. A lot easier.
What about old school hockey here, Pierre? Like Jacky and Savard for a few shifts to give them a little help,
Yeah, well, so there's nothing wrong with that too. But the part, what you need to do there, you'd rather have them do it off a shoot-in rather than domination off a face-off, which I think you would agree. It's easier to get the guy stick and pin. If they're dominating on a cycle, you're going to break those guys down pretty fast. But I like the thought.
The Jets were alert tonight, In the second period, there's a defensive zone face-off by the Canadiens have a defensive zone face-off. Suzuki takes the draw versus Mark Scheifele. Suzuki he pulls back the puck, so it's on his side, and Scheifele jumps into it right away, grabs the loose puck, puts it back to the point to Josh Morrissey, who finds Velarde behind the net. Matheson's on him. Velarde spins and throws it back out in front to Scheifele, who's left uncovered by Suzuki. They were on, and the Winnipeg Jets were on tonight. That number one line was on.
That was the first point I made. But I'm just going to tell you, and Max knows this, they're a legit contender. Like, if they do the right things at the deadline and Hellebuck can really step up in the playoffs, they have a legitimate chance to win the West. They do. But they need Adam Lowry back, and they need to add to that defense. And if they do those things, they got a chance. They got a chance.
What's their salary cap situation?
They'll be okay. They're okay. They can.
The Montreal Canadiens guys, because Pierre brought up Caden Guhle's injury. Once Jim Ramsey, the trainer, goes up to Trevor Letowski, the assistant coach, and tells him what he thinks has gone on with Guhle, Letowski goes over to Marty St. Louis and tells him, and look at Marty's face here. We'll bring it up. Here's a picture that we were able to get off of social media. There you have it. Marty not happy with the news. The Montreal Canadiens tweeted about 15 minutes ago, defenseman Caden Guhle sustained a lower body injury and will need further evaluation. Guys, we knew that the Canadiens who wanted to be in the mix could be in the mix as long as one of their key players didn't go down. Pierre, I think you had alluded to that at one point, like a Suzuki can't go down, a Caulfield can't go down. What if a Caden Guhle goes down, Pierre?
Next man up, and it's got to be Logan Mailloux. It's got to be. He had an amazing weekend last week and 3 goals and assists. He went to Hartford and won. They went to Providence and won. He's their best defenseman down there. He's a right shot, and maybe helps their team actually rather than hurts them. But all that being said, Guhle's a tough guy to replace. Just the shot blocking aspect, the penalty killing aspect, the grit factor, the fact he can play the left side and the right side. It's a big loss. It's a big loss.
We are going to take your calls tonight at 1-888-585-SICK, 1-888-585-7425. We'll also take your questions. You have a chance to ask Pierre, and you have a chance to ask Max. So without further ado, why don't we bring it up? Let's bring up the Winnipeg Jets lineup in the meantime while the calls are coming in. The Jets tonight at Scheifele with Velarde on the right and Connor on the left. Nemesnikov with Perfetti and Ehlers. Rasmus Kupari, who was one of the players, of course, who came over in the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. Velarde was the other, and Iafallo was the other. Kupari was with Appleton and Niederreiter, replacing Lowry, who Pierre mentioned. A lot of hockey people believe the Winnipeg Jets have the best third line in hockey with Lowry, Appleton, and Niederreiter. On the fourth line, Gustafsson, Iafallo, and Barron, who delivered a devastating check, guys, on Kirby Dach. My God. Morrissey, DeMello, Sandberg, Pionk, Stanley, and Fleury. Max, when Barron hit Dach like that, I'm like, oh, my God. Like, I've seen Dach get hit like this before, and last time he did, it didn't turn out well.
No, I don't know why he puts himself in that position, but that happens, right? You got to take the hit at one point to make a play, but you see, like, for me, that shows a little bit where the players are, their set of mind. The month they've been winning hockey games, every time you would see a hit or something, there was a scrum right after. Like, guys would go after guys touching their teammates. You can see, like, I'm not saying they didn't work tonight, but they didn't have the same attitude they had the last month. Like, they weren't as hungry as they were. I know they were playing a really good hockey team. Like Pierre said, they're probably a contender, but they were missing that little 10% playing on the edge, Like, I feel that's why we weren't in the game tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Pierre, if we take a look at the last 6 hockey games, the Montreal Canadiens are giving up a lot of shots. They're giving up a lot of goals. I go back to January 18th versus Toronto. They gave up 7 in a 7-3 loss. They bounced back and beat the Rangers 5-4 in overtime, but they've given up 4 there. They beat the Lightning 3-2. They could have easily lost that game, guys. I mean, everyone, Samuel Montembeault was the best player in that hockey game. A couple nights later, they lose 4-2 in Detroit. On the weekend, they lose 4-3 in overtime versus the Devils. Tonight, they lose 4-1. So make it 7, make it 4. That's 11. and 2 that's 13, and 4 that's 17, and 4 that's 21, and 4 that's 25. They've given up 25 goals in the last 6 games. That's a lot of goals. Pierre, do you see them getting back to some of their old habits that we saw back in the month of October?
No, I just think there's a fatigue factor that's set in with this team. They've had to overachieve for so long. I love what Maxim Lapierre said before. People have to remember we all got caught up in the hype. The truth of the matter is this is still a rebuilding team, and they're playing into the teeth of their schedule. They got Minnesota coming in Thursday, then they head to Anaheim, San Jose, LA, and then they come home and play New Jersey and Tampa before they go on break. I mean, look, it's not getting any easier. And with the Guhle injury, and you got to think, I'm not going to try to play doctor, but I don't think that one's going to be very good.
No.
So this is going to be an issue. Fatigue. I think, Tony, more than anything else, I'm curious what Max thinks. These are the dog days of the season, but when you're a team that has to grossly overachieve to maintain, credibility with the upper echelon teams, it's even harder. It's even harder to do.
It is tough, and like the other teams too, they're coming in right now and they're prepared. Like it's not they're in their head, they're not like we're saying they're rebuilding, but Winnipeg came here playing a playoff team tonight.
Oh,
like
yeah, they did 100%.
They played the playoff game, and that's part of growing as a team. Like you need to. There's so many steps to becoming like a good hockey team. Like it's being confident, getting in the structure, like being strong physically as a young player. Then the teams are taking you seriously. Like we've been talking about matchups. I feel like every year you're taking up 10%, 10%, and now they need to know that teams are ready for them, and that's the next step for the Canadiens.
Let's get to the phone calls. We got Jerry. Jerry, thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Jerry.
I have a question for the three of you. I know, but with Guhle going down, it doesn't look good, and losing the game. But I want to put a little positivity in this. Did you check out what Demidov did today?
Hat trick.
It's on YouTube if people want to check it out. And one of the goals was an empty netter, but I mean, he could have scored 5 today. There was one, he got a breakaway. And the goalie stopped it, wound up behind the net, deked 2 defensemen to get another shot. So my question is, considering the first line, I think it's pretty set. I think we shouldn't touch that. How do we put Demidov in this lineup? And I think, in my opinion, we need a second-line centerman. I don't think Doc or Newhook is the answer. So I'd like your opinion about that.
Guys, just before you answer, Ivan Demidov, 19 goals, 21 assists, 40 points in 48 games, and this with an average ice time of 12 minutes and 44 seconds per game as a 19-year-old in one of the best hockey leagues in the world. Pierre, I mean, the images don't lie. He's obviously got the makings of an NHL superstar one day.
Oh, he's going to be a superstar offensive player, that's for sure. I mean, I know enough people in that league. I know enough guys that I've spoken to, and they're so excited about the player. To Jerry's point, there's still a transition, and Max said it before, and he's right. It's one thing to do it in that league. It's another thing to do it with all the different matchups and size factor and people hitting on you and challenging you. Look at Matvei Mishkov was supposed to come in and rip the NHL apart. And for the first 9 or 10 games, he did. Check his numbers since then. They're nowhere near as good. This is a hard transition. So he'll start maybe fast next year. He'll be here. I'd be shocked if he's not here. But just don't build up the expectation too much. Just manage the expectation. But he's going to be a really good player.
Yeah, for sure, it's going to be good. And let's not forget as well, like Pierre is so right. Like he's going to need help from good veterans playing with him, and it's not that easy to just come in the best league in the world and just do whatever you want. And like I think a little thing people don't see is in the KHL, obviously, it's one of the best leagues in the world, but there's maybe 8 teams that are great. The rest are very, very average. So it's point night against those teams for sure.
Agreed.
Guys, speaking of the Canadian second line here with Jerry on the line, Jerry says he thinks the Montreal Canadiens will need a second line centerman going forward. what do you think of the overall toughness of the line? They look like a line with Liney and Doc and Newhook that if they stay together, let's just say Demidov starts on that line next year with Liney and Doc. Let's just say they don't make any changes, but they start Demidov and Alex Newhook moves down the line and ultimately ends up taking over for Christian Dvorak, who might not be here, okay? Is that line going to have the necessary toughness when they go up against big, strong teams or when they end up playing in the playoffs and it becomes playoff hockey? Are you gentlemen at all worried about the grit on a line like that?
Maxie, go ahead.
Well, they're big guys. Like, they're supposed to be gritty, and that's part of becoming a good NHL hockey player. Like, at one point, it's a decision. We talked about it 2 weeks ago. Are you going to play that way or you're not going to play that way? Then you're not the right guys. Like, it's that simple. If you want to play on the first, second line in the NHL, you got to do something special.
One of the best offensive lines in the league is Lafreniere, Panarin, and Zibanejad in New York. Not exactly a lot of super aggressive guys in that line, but they found a way to be pretty darn good. You know, they find a way to compete. So it's to Max's point, which I totally agree. It's a player mindset. You have to decide how gritty you want to be, how much you want to compete, and how much you want to fight for your ice.
There's a big difference, Tony, between playing tough and playing heavy. And playing a heavy game, like being strong on the puck, that's part of toughness in a certain way.
Yeah. Speaking of lines that are doing really well, guys, this chart came up during the broadcast tonight. Goal production, 5-on-5 going into the game. The line of Scheifele, Velarde, and Connor have scored the most 5-on-5 goals in the National Hockey League at 34. That line that Pierre McGuire talked to you about, Lafreniere, Panarin, they got Trocheck up there, has 30. Kucherov, Point, and Gensel, 28. Hughes, Palat, and Bratt, 25. And the line of Suzuki, Caulfield, and Slavkovsky, 23. You can add a couple of goals to the Scheifele line after tonight, and you can add a goal to the Suzuki line for the Montreal Canadiens after tonight as well. We go to Reno. Hello, Reno.
Hello.
How are you?
Not too bad. How are you?
Very good. You're on with Max Lapierre and Pierre McGuire. Go ahead.
Good evening, Max. Good evening, Pierre. And good evening, Tony.
Good evening.
Nice to talk to you guys. I'm a 60-year-old guy that's been watching hockey for a long time. I'm not old. A 60-year-old is not old. Growing up as a kid with my dad, watched Ken Dryden. I watched Patrick Roy and, of course, Carey Price. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but if Dobes doesn't lose in overtime the other night, and yes, the mistake by Liney with the pass and everything, he's undefeated. What about on the next trip, we start giving him a little more rope? Let him take over. I remember that skinny kid called Patrick Roy, 19 years old, winning the cup. Give him some space, and let's see what he can do. Just for fun. We got nothing to lose. What do you think?
I think he's going to get some space, quite frankly, because you got to remember he's going into the Four Nations too. So I think the management team and the coaching staff is going to figure that out. I do. I think they're going to give him an opportunity to run with it a little bit so that Montembeault can get a little bit of rest. I do believe that, and I think it's a really good point.
Good. I think he's going to surprise everyone.
Yeah, he's a really good goalie, but it's really a small sample right now, right? Like, you need to see him more. I agree with you, but at the same time, like, let's not forget that Montembeault has been growing every year. Like, is the first year is a number one in the NHL. He fought his whole career to be there. I think he's been doing like fairly good since he has that role, but he still needs to adjust to all that, right? Like, I think it's the first time he's in net so many times during a season. It's a challenge when it's the first time. So I think let's not forget that we have room for Montembeault to grow as well.
Yeah, I understand that totally. I just think that this Western swing that's coming up with no pressure, give him a bit of the net.
Yep.
Who knows? He might win 3 in a row, and we could be right back in this thing.
Yep, it's a good point. Good point.
Well, I mean, I don't think, they're playing 3 games in 3.5 days on that West Coast trip. I don't think they're going to play the same goalie for all 3.
No, but you can play them back to back.
Yeah.
You could. We'll see. We'll see how it works out.
What happens, Pierre? I know what happens more often than not, guys, is that one will play game 1 and play game 3, and the other one will play the game in between, right? And I think that's the way it's going to
could happen too. So here's my question for you.
But you don't have a problem with Montembeault starting tonight, and
no,
I mean,
not at all. No,
I mean, they didn't lose this game because of goaltending.
No, absolutely not.
No,
but I will say this: Hellebuck made 2 great saves on breakaways. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, he did. Zadar on line 3. Hello, Zadar.
Hi, how are you guys doing?
We're doing extremely well.
Hello.
So my question is in regards of Patrick Laney. I figured that he's not as productive on a 5v5 role, and I wondered, should they try to switch Caulfield and Laney for, to test it out and see if he could build a little bit of more a chemistry with Suzuki and Slavkovsky, and Doc and Caulfield and Newhook could build that chemistry together, because I think Laney needs a little bit of more support in terms of playmaking. Slavkovsky has an amazing pass. Suzuki has an amazing pass too, and they all are dangerous in the offensive zone. I understand that they're having a hot streak right now, and they wouldn't want to break that that chemistry they have on the first line, but I think it's something needed for Patrick Laney, in my opinion. What do you guys think about that?
Guys, if I could tackle this one first, we just brought up a chart that showed you the most productive lines 5-on-5 in the National Hockey League, and the line of Suzuki, Caulfield, and Slavkovsky's top 5. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't want to break that, number one. Number two, if that line goes up against some of the best lines in hockey, I don't know if you want to put Patrick Laney in that situation, guys. He's not exactly the best 200-foot player in the National Hockey League.
Maxim Lapierre made a great point before about being heavy on the puck. Patrick Laney's a big guy, but he's not exactly the most heavy guy in the puck.
Yeah, exactly.
What would spark that second line in you guys' opinion? Because they're struggling a little bit, to be honest.
Well, I think right now, we need to take a step back. Like we were, and let's not forget we're in a rebuild, but we were so out of the playoffs, and we played so well for a long period of time, and we're really close from a playoff spot, right? So why panic right now? I feel like it took a few bad games, and now, like we said earlier, Madison is not good anymore. We want to change the D pairing. We want to change the lines. Pezzetta should be out of the lineup. This guy should be out of the lineup. Let's just wait a few more games. I think we're going to be okay. It's all about the focus and the effort for me. You need, and that doesn't mean they didn't work tonight, but they weren't on playoff mode. And if they just need to play just 10% harder, and they're not a bad hockey line. That's what we have this year. That's what we have to work with. And it's going to be like this until Demidov comes in and other guys come in. That's all we have.
Mm-hmm. Elsewhere in the National Hockey League tonight, the Islanders beat Colorado by a score of 5-2. The Buffalo Sabres beat the Boston Bruins by a score of 7-2. A hat trick for Tage Thompson and a hat trick for JJ Peterka in that one. So the Washington Capitals are currently up by a score of 2-1 on the Calgary Flames as we speak. So the Montreal Canadiens, unfortunately, are unable to make up any ground tonight. The Canadiens are, how many points are they? Are 2 points behind Tampa Bay in a wild card spot, and Tampa Bay has a game in hand on the Montreal Canadiens. But Detroit also has 53 points. Columbus has 55. Once again, Tampa Bay with the second wildcard spot at 55, and the Bruins at 56. The Canadiens are still in the mix, but make it now 3 straight losses for the Montreal Canadiens, who will host the Minnesota Wild on Thursday night. And I guess the only good news going into that game is that Minnesota is going to be playing the Leafs in Toronto tomorrow night, and the Canadiens will catch Minnesota on a back-to-back. Let's go to Hawk on line 4. Hello, Hawk.
Hi, guys. Mark here. Thank you so much for putting me on.
Yeah,
it's great. This is the best trio, guys. Love hearing the three of you guys on together. But
if we're the best trio, Hawk, I have to tell you that you were part of one of the best duos, along with Animal, the Legion of Doom, one of the best tag team duos the WWF has ever seen.
The World Wildlife Federation is always near and dear. Here's my question. Here's my challenge to Tony. Can you find a way to get Pierre and Max to disagree on anything? Because all I see is perpetual agreement between Max and Pierre. Even when Tony tries to pick a bone, I see you guys are always on the same side. So There's a challenge for Tony. Can you find something that Max and Pierre will not agree on? Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Really
All right.
appreciate
Perfect. And I think I can find that. Max, who's better looking, you or Pierre? Pierre, who's better looking, you or Max? Chances are they're going to disagree.
It's
folks.
an easy answer.
I'm going to say Max.
Pierre, hey, it's easy. Pierre in the 70s, Maxim in the 2000s.
I would say that you haven't disagreed yet so far because great minds think alike, and you guys both have pretty good hockey minds. But that was a fun call by Hawk. But
can I ask a question?
Well, hold on. I think you disagreed. 1 minute into the show when Pierre said, why is Mike Pezzetta on the ice versus Winnipeg's first line with 30 seconds left in a period in a 1-goal game? And you said, well, fourth line guys, sometimes you have to show confidence in them as well, and this and that. And Max, I'm going to agree with Pierre on this one.
Yeah, good. I got a question. But I want to ask Pierre something. He's been in the game. Like, how many players would you say out of the Montreal Canadiens lineup are what we call in the dressing room a gamer? Like guys that are, when the game is on the line, they're going to block shots with their face and they're going to take their game to another level.
I'm just looking at the roster now.
Take your time.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9.
9 players. Okay, you know what? I'd like to do an exercise if I
Go,
can.
Tony, I want to hear you.
I'd like to write down 9 names and see if they match Pierre's names. All right.
Okay.
So
gamers? I don't have 9.
Gamer?
So
I have gamers. So I'll give you an example. I have Arbor. I'll just give you 2 that I have. Arbor, Jack Guy, and Savard on the back end.
Yeah,
I got 2 of those guys right there.
Sure, yeah.
And I'm going to also put Caden Guhle in that. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put Carrier in that too. So I got 4 guys. Those are the only guys I'm going to tell you. Then you guys can go.
Geez, now it's hard. Because those were the guys on my list for sure. Arbor Jackeye, David Savard, Alex Carrier, Caden Guhle. It's a difficult question because to not call Lane Hudson a gamer, it all depends.
It's to what he said, though. It's to what Max said. Dive face first in front of shots. Do all this stuff. Take hits, massive hits to make play. I know what he's talking about.
I'll add Josh Anderson this season. I'll add Josh Anderson. I wouldn't have added him last season, but I'll add him this season. I'll add Nick Suzuki, that I think is less.
So now you're at 6.
Less than some of the other guys that we talked about, but
you're at 6.
I understand Max's question. It's
okay,
hard to find names.
Do we have enough? That's because right now we're at the stage we're building a culture, right? Like we're
Jake Evans a gamer.
I think Jake Evans is there.
That's 7, so you're 2 short of where I said.
So you have Suzuki and Caulfield?
I have Suzuki.
So okay, and who's the third one?
I'm waiting for you to figure it out. You guys are missing one guy, and you know what? The fans are going to say you can't be real. Christian Dvorak. Dvorak's a tough kid. He's not going to bail out. Look at all the penalty kill shot blocks. Depth player. Not as good as you, Max, but depth player.
No, I don't have it on my list.
No, I know. Most people wouldn't. I know.
I have a tough time with the forwards. Now on D, that's a
what
good
about
point.
Brendan Gallagher? You have him on there?
Yeah, Guhle.
For sure.
There you go. So the one that you don't agree with me on is Dvorak. All the other ones that's 8 out of 9.
You're pretty good, Pierre.
You know what?
My point is, you see how easy it is on D to know that who the real guys are. Like at forward is not the same at all.
No. And Tony, I can say this with comfort, and I know that Hawk was asking a question. I don't even know how many games that Max played in over the course of his career, but a lot. And that's the one thing coaches could always know about Max. Like whatever it took, he was going to do it. I had a player like that never got enough credit. Trey Loney, he was the same kind of thing. Phil Bork was the same kind of thing. Mark Jansen's I knew at the end of a game, they'll go out there. They'll dive face first in front of the shot. Ulfie Samuelson, Shell Samuelson, all these guys. those are gamers that Max is talking about. I always respected those guys a ton.
Yeah, no. Max is he's a tough guy. He took a puck to the face in an alumni game a couple of weeks ago. He showed me he was all shaved here. He was cut up underneath his chin. He got, I don't know, 6 or 7 stitches or whatever it is. And he was
9 a.m. morning hockey.
and he was and he was laughing the whole time. I dislocated my pinky once and I ran to the hospital and I started crying. All right, okay. Back to the phone lines we go. That's a true story, by the way. At 1-888-585-SICK, 1-888-585-7425. Mark Ener says, who could we pick up as a second center next year? Any decent UFAs out there to play with Laine and Demidov?
The one thing I'm going to say is I don't think it's going to be easy for UFAs to come to Montreal. I just don't think it's going to be that easy. I think there's not a huge pool, and it's not going to be that easy. Here's what I will say. We had Jeff Gordon on the eye test last week, and he said these guys have played their way into getting some help at the deadline, and I agree with that. And I think one of the things they might be looking at is a center. He didn't tell me that, but I think it is. And if they're able to do that, that'd be great.
They need a center. I think there's a few, but I just don't know. Like what do they want? Do they want a guy that's going to help for 1 or 2 years, or do they want to go long term? You know, like I feel like it's a tough spot because you want to think about the future, but at the same time, you need to surround those kids. Like we've been talking about Demidov. For me, like you don't want him coming in next year and playing on that line. That's not enough to support this guy.
You know what's a big question, Max? You know what? No, I agree with you. You know what's a big question? What happens with Jake Evans' contract? And I'm not trying to avoid the question. If you get Jake Evans signed and you know what the cost is, it's a fixed cost asset, then you can maybe go out and splurge. But if you got to overpay to get him dollar-wise, it's a problem.
Would you pay for Sam Bennett?
I would. Sam Bennett is you with a little more offense. That's what he is. I mean it. I think you would agree with. I think you would agree with that.
I think he's way better than me, but yes, I see what you're saying.
No, Sam Bennett's you with a little more offense. That's what he is.
That would be my call for next year. And you're right. The list, like I got the list, and
it's not a big list. Duchesne doesn't do what you need.
Yeah, no.
You got Duchesne coming. You know, I'm not saying Owen Beck is Duchesne, but down the road he may be.
Guys, you need a Sam Bennett on your team to win a Stanley Cup. There's no doubt in my mind that every team in the league would take a Sam Bennett on their team and twice on Sundays. But, you know, what are we talking about here in terms of he's never hit more than 49 points, guys? I get it. He scored over 20 goals twice. He's never hit more than 49 points. And he's a player, though. He's a player whose value is more measured in the playoffs than in the regular season. I get it.
You know what else, too, you're going to get? He's been playing in a no-tax state for a while now, and he ain't coming to a tax place. I'm just telling you, once those guys taste that, Max knows. Ask the players. Once they get a little nibble of that, no, it's not happening. I don't see it happening.
Yeah. If the question was, if the Canadiens are in the mix a couple of points out of a playoff spot this year, and they're going to go out and make a deal, who would you get? For me, those would provide easy answers. There would be some easy answers for that. The question is, who can center that second line next year and for years to come after that with Demidov and either Laine or so? That's a little bit more difficult because if you're saying the Canadiens are in the mix, who can they get down the stretch this year? It's very easy. You look at the Western Conference. You look at players who play on teams that aren't going to make the playoffs. And those are the players that would probably be available. And we've talked about this before. We brought up Brian O'Reilly. Pierre, you said it would be difficult because he'd probably choose to go somewhere else. I love Michael Granlund. He's on last year of his contract. If the Canadiens are in the mix, that's a player that I would identify. I know you guys have also talked about Yanni Gourde, and that's a player that you guys would identify as well. But who could be that centerman next year if it's not going to be Doc? That's a tough question.
Let me ask you a question. How come nobody talks about Anaheim? How come nobody ever talks about Anaheim? They got a plethora, like starting with Leo Carlson, Trevor Zegras. I don't want Zegras, but I'm just Leo Carlson. Mason McTavish is the player. That's the one. And I'm not saying they're trading him, please, because I don't need Verbeek getting mad at me out there.
Yeah.
but I'm just telling you, like they've acquired some really good center icemen. And McTavish would be a kid who's from Ottawa. He wouldn't. I don't think that'd be an issue.
So I don't know Pat Verbeek personally. I obviously know the career that he had. But if I were to take a guess here with no information whatsoever, I would say if I'm Pat Verbeek, I believe that in order to put together a team that could win the cup one day, I could probably do it with a 1-2 punch of Leo Carlson and Mason McTavish. So I don't think he's trading.
No, but I'm just throwing that name. That'd be a guy that would
you.
interest me. If I were Montreal, you're talking about long term. That's the type of player you want to get.
For sure.
That's the guy you want to get.
1,000%. 1,000%.
It's tough. Like Pierre, I got a question, like another one. I'm pretty annoying tonight. What about the offer sheets? Like, I feel like why don't team use it a little more?
Because
like
they're going to get more times than not. They get matched. They do. They get matched. I get it. It's a tool in the toolbox, but more times than not, guys match it.
And then do they say I don't want to tick off the fraternity at that point? It's going to be matched anyway.
You know what? Maybe when Brian Burke was giving it to Kevin Lowe. Yeah, I mean, back then, but that doesn't happen anymore. These guys are so civilized now. They don't wear jeans to work. They wear shirt and ties.
Well, Carolina wasn't very happy with the Montreal Canadiens, and they said, you want to do that to us? We're going to do it to you.
Yeah, I know. How'd that work out for them?
Not too well, I don't think.
Yeah, but how would it work out if we paid more for Aho, though? If we offered like an overpriced contract, he would be our second center or maybe our first center right now.
No, possibly.
Yeah.
Here's the one thing I'll say. Here's the one thing I will say. Number one centers are hard to trade for. You either sign them as free agents like they did with Tavares in Toronto, or you draft them like they did with Austin Matthews. Very few teams do what Boston did with Joe Thornton. I'm just telling you. Very few teams. And think about the compensation. 3 players for one, and it wasn't even close.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? I got something for you guys here. Since we're talking about players. Earlier today, and this came out of the Globe and Mail, I think, was it Jim Rutherford admitted that there is an issue between JT Miller and Elias Pettersson. And that, you know what, they've been trying to help them figure it out. And the players themselves have tried. And once it looks like they get back on the right track and they take a step forward, they end up taking 2 steps backward. Something's going to happen there, guys.
It is absolutely ridiculous to me. Like grown men's like playing in the NHL. Like I wouldn't make this a joke. Like I would come in the dressing room if I were the coach or the GM and put like a smiley face when they have a good day. Just and with dessert. Like you're not allowed dessert tonight because you're not a good teammate. Like are they serious? It's the NHL. They're 30 years old. I don't know. Like what is this? What is like seriously?
But Max, I bring it up because we're talking about who could be a potential second line centerman, and we're throwing out a few names. Elias Pettersson, Pierre, is this a player that you think could fit in Montreal if Montreal could have all the pieces that would appease the Vancouver Canucks? Is this a player that you think could be a fit with what they're trying to do here and who they'd want to surround them with?
Athletically, yes. I don't know the person at all. I know the player. I don't know the person. But athletically, the fit is good. Here's the one thing I would say. Don't even put JT Miller in that conversation. He's got a no trade until 29-30. He's not waiving that to come to Montreal. No way. Just telling you. No chance. So I hope you understand what I'm saying. I know Pettersson, the player. I don't know Pettersson, the person.
Like, even the player, for me, it's a pretty big risk. Like, I think he's a good player with a lot of skills, but sometimes maybe if he's happy and maybe it doesn't work for real in the dressing room and all that, and he's really unhappy, but he's a high-risk player for me. Like, I'm not convinced about his effort and all that. And I think he's a great player, but he's not my type of player. That's for sure.
So I'm Tony. I got to say this to Max. I mean this with all due respect because he was teammates with these guys. The Sedins have a big voice in Vancouver. They do. They got a big voice there, and they're popular teammates. Max, fair to say.
Yeah,
good teammates. I can't believe that they haven't been able to get this thing settled down between both guys. I'm shocked by it. It's the one part of the story that's never been reported. These guys are big voices in that organization, and they haven't been able to get this thing settled down. I'm shocked by it. I really am.
What's happening with Elias Pettersson is absolutely unbelievable. He's a couple of years removed from 102-point season. Last year, he dropped to 89 points. It's a 13-point drop in production. This year, past the midway point of the season, he has 31 points. This guy's on pace for less than 60 points. 2 years before that, he had 102. The year before that, he had 89. You know what? Yes, it's concerning, but can it be that his value is much lower now than it was a couple of years ago?
Maybe, but his salary is still there, though.
Yeah, that's the problem. The money's there.
The cap's going up, though, guys. It'll be over 100 million within 3 years.
We'll see.
It's pretty expensive, Tony. Better work.
We'll see.
Max, did you see the way Pierre answered? He answered almost with certainty in terms of some inside knowledge vis-a-vis the salary cap. What am I getting at? Is he taking over for Gary Bettman? Am I going to lose my partner here on the post-game shows on the Sick Podcast or what?
No. I wouldn't be delicate enough to do that job.
Seriously?
I'd love to do the job, but I think I'd piss enough people off.
But I think that's why we're all on the same podcast tonight, guys.
Back to the phone lines we go at 1-888-585-7425. We're laughing, but a lot of Montreal Canadiens fans probably are not. The Montreal Canadiens have lost their third game in a row. Pierre, Matrix is real, says Guhle out, Reinbacher in. Well, no, Reinbacher still has a no-contact jersey. And if I were a betting man, I would bet that when Reinbacher does return to play, it's going to be in Laval and not with Montreal. But Pierre, when we talked about Caden Guhle, you said if he's down, Logan Mayu's up. When you said Logan Mayu's up, you talked about some of the best games that he played in the last weekend. But you mean Logan Mailloux not only up, but actually entering the lineup? Is that what you mean?
I hope so.
Okay, so my question to you is, why did you forget? Why didn't you bring up Struble?
Because I think that he's been down in the American Hockey League for the last 2 games, and I don't think that he's been the force that they're expecting. And you got to remember, he's a lefty too. He's a left shot.
Oh, they definitely need righties. There's no doubt about that.
They need a righty. They do. They need a righty.
Max, Logan Mailloux?
Well, you need to see him at one point, right? He's been dominating in the AHL for 2 years now. We've talked about this with Slavkovsky. Like, at one point, you need to play against NHL players to be able to improve, because you're always going to be able to do the same thing in the AHL that you were doing in juniors, which is use your big body and like be stronger than everyone else and use the same tools and weapons. Like, when you go to the NHL, you need to find something else. You need to find a way to be who you are in the leagues below. And I don't see any other ways than playing those games to find it.
I agree.
Back to the phone lines we go. Or let's do a rapid fire. Let's do a rapid fire right now. Let's go. Danny says, guys, would you trade Demi Dov for this year's first overall pick? No. Let's stop.
No, but I would trade I wouldn't trade Demi Dov, but I would try to get the first overall pick to get Matthew Schaefer. Yeah, I would.
Yeah. So he's number one on your list, eh, Pierre?
Yeah. Hagens is 2. Hagens is 2. I've seen both players at that.
Mesa 3?
Yeah.
Martone 4?
No, I don't have Martone as high as most people.
So where do you have Caleb Desnoyers?
I got him in the top 15.
Top 15, eh? Okay. Yeah. So who do you have it for, Pierre? Who do you have it for?
I'm not telling you. That's just
you know what? Holds on to his cards. Why not? Hey, listen.
No, I just told you the guy that I tell you what, like, a lot of people have Hagens, a lot of people have Schaefer. I've seen both a lot. I just think Schaefer's a different type of player. He really is. He's a hell of a player. He's really good.
Next question on rapid fire. Hab Nation says Matheson and Carrier puck moving D. Why do they play on the same duo?
Well, if you move Matheson with Hudson, they're both puck moving Ds too. So I don't know.
Lane Hudson's a lot more of a puck moving defenseman than Alex Carrier.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Let's make Max answer the next one.
I just think like when you get a guy like Carrier with Madison, it gives him the chance to skate a little more with the puck.
Yeah. Next question, rapid fire. John says Armia has been quiet lately, but most Habs have been. Tired team, I guess. Pierre?
I thought Maxi was answering this one.
Yeah, I think they're tired. And thanks for the question, Tony. Like, if you want, I can just take pictures of you too, right? Like,
and I agree with Max. I do think they're a tired team. We said that before, and I think they are. They're tired.
They're gassed, 100%.
They're a tired team.
1-888-585-7425, 1-888-585-SICK. We're going to get back to a couple of calls, and then we'll probably call it a night here on the Habs post game on the SICK podcast. The Canadiens lose by a score of 4-1 versus the Winnipeg Jets. Let's get to the game sheet, actually, to get to some of the goals that were scored. Let's bring it up if we can. Can we bring it up? There we go. Slavkovsky, 11:03 into period number 1. It's Caulfield to Suzuki behind the net, to Slavkovsky in the slot. He scores. And then it's Velarde who strips Cole Caulfield of the puck in the neutral zone, gives it to DeMello. He shoots off of Velarde. Connor's offensive instincts. He gets to it before Mike Matheson does. On to the second period we go. It's a defensive zone faceoff for the Canadiens. It's Suzuki versus Scheifele. Suzuki draws it back, but Scheifele jumps on the puck first. Back to the point to Morrissey, who gives it to Velarde behind the net, who spins off Matheson. Boom, back in front of the net to Scheifele. And the Jets go up by a score of 2-1. With a couple of seconds left in period number 2, it was Gustafsson to Kyle Connor down low, who beats Montembeault 3-1. And in period number 3, it's Rasmus Kupari in an empty net, assisted by Ehlers and Perfetti. The shots on goal were 15-7 for Montreal in period number 1, 13-3 for Winnipeg in period number 2, 7-4 for Montreal in period number 3, 25-24 for the Canadiens overall. Let's take a look at some more stats on NHL.com. 41% in the faceoff circle for Winnipeg, 59% for the Canadiens. The Winnipeg Jets went 0 for 3 on the power play. And guys, the Canadiens didn't have any power plays tonight.
Well, I guess that this is what happens when you're the one chasing the puck, right? Like
you're chasing the puck because, look, we bring it up one more time. 40 block shots for the Canadiens. 40 hits for the Canadiens. What do they say about hitting? You're only hitting if you don't have the puck. You're not hitting when you have the puck. So the Canadiens, they were chasing quite a bit tonight. They were, and
that's all part of what we've been discussing. That when you're tired, you're a step behind, and you start chasing right away as soon as the faceoff is dropped. So like they just need to hold on until the Four Nation Cup, like that. Yeah. They need to be good until then rest a little bit and come back with being in playoff mode. I think let's not forget, like we've been talking about Carrier as well, like on D, how much he balanced everything. I feel like the opposite just happened with Heineman as a forward. Like let's not underestimate. He was making his line so much better, I think, and you need to do that little twist right now. You got Anderson instead in his spot. So
yeah,
everything changed. Like, as when we had success, we had 4-line rolling and everybody was contributing. That right now it's not the case.
For me, guys, when we try and look at some of the positives out of the game, because it can't all be negative, I'm going to go with a couple of positives tonight. I don't know if there's more than that. Slavkovsky once again showing that it takes a while to get him going, but in the second half he's going. That's a big-time goal by Slavkovsky. That's one. Number 2 for positives, the Canadiens' penalty kill, guys. It looks like they studied one of the best power plays in the National Hockey League to a T, and they knew what Winnipeg was going to do before they actually did it. Can you guys add more positives to tonight's
I
hockey
thought
game?
the start of the game, the first 10 minutes of the game was really good for Montreal. They answered the bell. They came out and they were ready. And Connor Hellebuck made some saves, and they didn't have a lot of hockey luck, Montreal, but I thought they did a good job out of the gate, which is something they can build on. But Max made a point about playoff hockey, and this is something that's a little bit concerning. When the other team decided to push back in the second period because they were a little bit ticked off, Montreal had a tough time measuring up. They had a tough time. So
it's the second time too in a few days. Like it's same against Toronto, right?
Yep.
Like second period, big pushback, and that was it. So they need to figure that out.
Guys, the Minnesota Wild visit the Montreal Canadiens on Thursday night. And of course, my question to both of you before we go is, who's your starting goalie on Thursday?
Dobes.
Fleury. Hey, last game in Montreal. Who cares about the Canadiens goalies for once?
Yeah. And you know what, guys? I know Minnesota plays in Toronto tomorrow, but we also know that every team that Marc-Andre Fleury has played for, he's been such a popular teammate. And when games are important to him, his teammates will put their teeth in front of pucks to stop them for him. Yeah. They know how much this game means to him. It's going to be his last game in Montreal. Yep. And he wasn't very happy a couple of months back when they played the Canadiens in Minnesota and he didn't get the start. It looks like he will get the start this Thursday night in Montreal.
It's going to be a special game. A lot of fun for the fans as well in Montreal because this goalie has been, first of all, a great goaltender, but like an even better, Pierre knows, like the best teammate you can have, right? Like positive every day, competing every day, spectacular goalie. Like, and Tony, that's a good point. The guys, they're going to play probably their best game of this season on Thursday in Montreal. So I hope the Habs are ready.
Yeah. Pierre,
I agree. Yeah.
Pierre, you that said Dobes. And if he wins, and Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern time, the Canadiens play in Anaheim.
He starts again.
Ooh.
And if he wins,
starts again.
So you're going with the guy who's winning will play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to the Bowman School of Hockey Technology. Give me the guy that's going to give you the best chance to win. And I think Sam Montembeault has played really well, but I think he's tired. It's a lot of hockey.
I don't mind that when a guy wins, keep him in like that. That's it. I mean, Yaroslav Halak came in net and he won, and we kept him there. It paid off big time, right? So if Carey Price can sit on the bench, so is Sam Montembeault.
You know what's amazing about that? I got to just throw this out. Max is
please
there.
do. Please
when
do.
You Roman Hamrlik and Yuri Spacek, those guys are like goalies in the first round in particular against Washington.
And Hal Gill. And Hal Gill.
But I'm just Hamrlik and Spacek. I'm watching those guys, and I watched them grow up playing hockey in Czechia, and I'm like, what the hell are these guys doing? It was amazing. It really was.
That was unreal.
Much to the delight of Jacques Martin, that for him, guys that block shots.
Josh Georges.
Josh was another one. Josh Georges.
So we basically had 7 goalies.
That was the famous line by our buddy Le Tigre, Michel Bergeron, back on L'Antichambre back in the day. He says, Hill's blocking 6 shots, Hammerlick's blocking 5, Spacek's blocking 5, George is blocking 6. He goes, you would think this team has 5 goalies.
Hey, that's paying the price. Gamers. We were talking about gamers. That's what it is.
Yeah. Well, once again, guys, the Canadiens will have an opportunity to redeem themselves on Thursday night in what will be Marc-Andre Fleury's last start in Montreal. Unless, of course, regular season start, that is, unless the Montreal Canadiens end up meeting the Minnesota Wild in the Stanley Cup final. Who knows? But we look forward to it, guys. 3 straight losses for the Canadiens, but they are still in the mix. But they got to stop this bleeding. They got to stop it soon. For now, Canadiens fans, cross your fingers, because the images did not look good for Caden Guhle. The Canadiens first reported that Guhle would be out day to day, and then after that, they reported that Guhle needed to be evaluated further. It didn't look good, but then again, there's been some injuries in the past that didn't look good, and we ended up getting some good news. So let's hope for some more good news for Kaiden Guhle, who unfortunately, it's not the first time he's been injured. So let's hope that his luck turns around. Yep. Guys, thanks again. Appreciate it very much. We'll talk to you, Pierre McGuire, in a couple of days. And by the way, Pierre.
Yes, sir.
We will be joined by Chris Knuckles Nyland on Thursday night's Habs postgame show.
Ooh. Excellent. Looking forward to it. Max, merci beaucoup, Max.
Merci, Pierre. Thank you.
Salut, Max.
Night, guys. Salut,
there you have it. Max Lapierre and Pierre McGuire, thank you very much. And special thanks, of course, to all of our sponsors. Once again, Energy Transportation Group, Bittt, Tibi, Playground, Restaurant Vago for bringing you the McGuire Report, and Betway. You can go all the way with Betway. Are they going to win versus the Minnesota Wild on Thursday night? You can get in on the action. Get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses. Scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account and redeem your welcome offer. Offers only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offers not available in Ontario. Must be 18 years of age and older, and please play responsibly. If you like the podcast tonight, leave us a 5-star review on Apple. It's our way of feeling the love. For Pierre McGuire, Max Lapierre, Agnello and Sammy and Master Control, I'm Marinaro. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same place. My guests tomorrow, Craig Button and Brian Wild. Ciao for now.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. Lapierre.tv, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.